All right, welcome back. Welcome back. Y'all know who it is. He who shall not be named. He who stands above all else. Metro Meta, and I'm here with my co-host.
Marcus Flowers, aka Flo, aka Call Me What You Want. Just don't call me lazy. And we are here to discuss the trailer and give our predictions of the show of the upcoming Disney Plus show, Marvel Studios presents Ms.Marvel. So before I really dive in, how you doing today, man?
Pretty good. It's really rainy outside, but it's nice to be in summer.
Okay, so what'd you do at Friday at 3:30 p.m. Once the
I
once the
went.
once the kids got out and you closed your door to your classroom for the last time, you dipped. How did that feel?
It was great. I like dip. Went straight home because I had like a bunch of plants that people gave me, and like I killed some other ones. So I dropped my stuff off at home. And then I went out to Northfield and I went and saw everything, everywhere, all the time.
Okay,
It's pretty good.
how was that?
It was pretty good. It was a pretty good movie.
Okay, and what is it about exactly? Because I've been hearing a lot of my friends talk about it, and they say it's a really great film.
It's like a multiverse movie where this lady finds out that there's a multiverse and she has to do this thing in order to like access other like parts of her life, like other choices and different parts of her or different multiverses of her where she has different like powers or different abilities based on like choices she made. So it's very like it's a very interesting movie. Like it's a funny movie, but it's also sort of an action movie. It's really like one of those movies you have to experience in order to get.
Okay. Um, that's pretty dope. Before, of course, if you are here, you read the title. We are here to talk about Miss Marvel, but before that, we are discussing. Actually, Meta, did you get a chance to watch the Obi-Wan series, the first two episodes?
I got through like part of episode one. I've been trying to get back into it lately.
Okay, so it's actually out of all of the Star Wars shows that have come out from like The Mandalorian, Boba Fett, and now Obi-Wan. I think this is my favorite one, just because it feels like a Star Wars actual show, and it doesn't take itself too serious. But
You can
of
call me
course,
for
like with
Star
all
Wars when
things
Ahsoka get her own show.
with all things that are like, I guess you can call it nerd. Well, not nerd culture now, but just like pop culture and just movies and film and just the type of medium that she is in. Moses Ingram, who plays the third sister in the show, of course, and she's a African American woman. She, of course, got bombarded after the first two episodes dropped with racism, which is very typical in in this line of work, unfortunately, that she is in. And people were telling her that she is unqualified, that she doesn't deserve the role, that there are no black people in Star Wars, and just all types of other stuff. And Moses, when they say she isn't qualified, this woman graduated from Yale with a degree in drama. So when you say she's not qualified, that just proves to you that your definition of what qualifies as good, it's like the paper bag test. It's like, oh, either if you're too dark, you're not too good. If it's too right, if it's too light, you're just right. So, but yeah, no, we definitely support Moses, and I've been loving Obi-Wan, especially her, how she's like really. I don't want to spoil a lot, but she's really taking control of the story, and it's like it's her mission to hunt Obi-Wan. So yeah, once again, 26 in Glencoe, we stand with Moses. We support you all the way. We can't wait to see all the good things that you will do in your career. And correct me if I'm wrong, Meta, but I feel like racism is something that all black Star Wars actors have to face.
Yeah,
Like, do you
all of them.
remember when John Boyega was like done with Star Wars and he was like,
They were pointing this out.
All y'all.
They were pointing this out on Twitter. Like after like Marvel posted this, they're like, whatever they're saying, just remember John Boyega said behind the scenes, they didn't care. And it has happened like 3 times. It happened when they announced that John Boyega was a stormtrooper and he showed his face and people were like, oh, it's a black main character. And we saw him all up in the first movie. Dude was wielding a lightsaber, mind you. If you know anything about Star Wars, because I was really into Star Wars at this time, most lightsabers, especially one that Luke would have gotten, I believe it was Luke's lightsaber, you have to be able to use the Force in order to make those lightsaber work. So in the very first movie, they're like, oh yeah, he can use the Force, he should be a Jedi. And then slowly they were like, push him to the side, push him to the side. To the point to where in the last movie, all he did was yell Rey. Like, they straight up did not care about him. When they came back in the next movie, and they're like, all right, we're pushing him to the side, but then they gave him a new love interest, and they went on this whole animal trip, but the new love interest was a person of color, person of Asian descent. Star Wars fans straight up bullied her off of Instagram. Like, this continues to happen every single time in this. And that's part of the reason why I literally have not watched The Mandalorian. I have not watched the Book of Boba Fett because I'm like, as cool as Star Wars is, the people who like it are weird and racist. And right now, I'm not trying to deal with that in my life.
Yeah, and I think with Star Wars coming out with this statement, it was a step in the right direction. It's still like not enough because it's just not in the climate that we're in. Like a tweet isn't enough. We're going to need more action to prove that you are truly behind this woman and you support her. Not just a tweet in solidarity, but we need words behind your actions. Like in this state of time in 2022, it's not enough to just say, oh, thoughts and prayers. Like, no, we actually need some action behind those words.
Yeah.
But you, if you're tuning in, you did not hear us to talk about Star Wars and Moses Ingram. You are here to hear us discuss Marvel Studios Presents. We already played the trailer for you. We played the trailer for you if you are listening on audio. Unfortunately, if you're watching on YouTube, we didn't play it just because, copyrights and monetization and all that. So we didn't play it. But we played the trailer for you. I'm going to have Meta take over, man. Just rock and roll.
All right. Let me start this off by saying, number one, okay? Main center, Mark. Not sharing screen. Main center on me. All right?
Hold up.
Camera. Give me full cam. All right. Let me start this off by saying, this show, I don't care if it's good. I don't care if it's bad. I don't care if it's mid. This show will be my personality for the next year. This show is everything I've ever wanted. Ms.Marvel is my favorite superhero, only one I've ever really cared about. This show is my Joker. The way people were with the Joker, that's going to be me at the end of this series. I don't care what happens in it. I'm going to make this show my Joker. It's going to be everybody else's problem. All right? Making that clear straight off the bat. Now, if we're getting into it, Ms.Marvel, it is, our synopsis says, Kamala Khan is a 16-year-old Pakistani-American growing up in Jersey City. We know how it goes. A great student and an avid gamer and a various fan fiction scribe, she has a special affinity for superheroes, particularly Captain Marvel. But Kamala struggles to fit in at home and at school. That is until she gets superpowers like heroes she's always looked up to. Life is easier with her powers, right? All right. Right off the bat, Marcus. So what are you thinking for this franchise? What do you want to see in this show?
Well, before we really deep dive, let's give just a quick little background on Ms.Marvel. Ms.Marvel, her first appearance was Captain Marvel number 14, which came out in August of 2013. and she was created by Sana Amanat and Stephen Wacker. And she was the first Muslim character to star in a solo series. She was not. I actually thought she was the first Muslim character in comic books, but she was not. She was predated by Green Lantern Simon Baz, and so her first comic book story, her first comic book series was written by Jay Willow, and who is a terrific author. And throughout her comic book history, she has been written only by Arab writers until the recent Ms.Marvel Beyond the Limit, where she was written by a Asian American writer. I can't remember her name off the top, but yeah, a little. And you talked about the expectations and stuff, but how do you feel about the difference in her powers?
That I think is interesting because there's been a lot of conversation about them changing her powers. I think they had two different problems when they were dealing with their problems with her powers. Like, number one, because her powers don't connect directly to like her heritage as a Pakistani, so I know they felt like they could change it just because of that aspect. But they had one problem where it's like stretchy powers don't always look good on screen. Like, we've seen all the Fantastic Four movies. It
And
doesn't always
also,
look good.
and also they're probably saving her elastic powers for Mr. Fantastic when he makes his. Oh well, he already made his Marvel Studio debut, but when he finally comes out as in Marvel Studios.
Yeah, and so you have that problem on one hand. And then on the other hand, you have the problem of, and this is what I'm interested in figuring out, how are they even going to get her the powers? Like, when it came to Ms. Marvel originally, if you don't know, Kamala Khan is a inhuman, and when she was out, Marvel was basically trying to make like X-Men like stories, but they didn't really want to use the X-Men because Fox owned them. And so they just came up with this plan where it's like, all right, we're releasing Terrigen Mist just out there in the random. So now random people can get powers. That's how she get her powers. We can't do that now because they tried with Inhumans, but it didn't really stick to landing.
Inhumans was like probably the worst Marvel show ever. Like,
yeah,
it literally was like, I can't even remember a series like it was like bad from like in every aspect of like every phase in the Marvel and the MCU. Everybody has always had their fair share of criticisms for it, but like Inhumans, it was just worse on another different level. It was just costumes bad, writing bad, acting bad, like everything was bad to the point it's like Marvel had to do away with the Inhumans and even the concept of it in the MCU for now. Like, I'm sure they're going to regurgitate it and bring it back, but that Inhuman show was so bad, it didn't even get a second series. Like, it got one season, and I think if I'm mistaken, I think they cut it off after like 6 episodes. But that was Ike Perlmutter, who was the head of Disney at the time. That was his brainchild. And if you remember, during the time, him and Kevin Feige were going back and forth to the point where Feige wanted to be a separate entity from Marvel, from Disney. Except he was like, yo, I don't want to answer to Ike Perlmutter because he doesn't know what he's doing. And there was an inner conflict to the point where he wanted to separate the leadership of Marvel that did not have to answer to Disney, and they figured it out eventually. But that was like that was Ike Perlmutter's last thing until Kevin Feige got full control over the Marvel Studios. And so we're seeing the ramifications of it now with Kamala Khan and how her bands are tied to like her maternal grandmother's bands. And I was reading an article and it's linked, and we linked it in here. And they say how the bands could be quantum bands or nano bands or nano bands, my mistake. And if you remember already, we have already seen the quantum zone in Ant-Man. We've already been to the negative zone. We've seen it in Doctor Strange in the multiverse of madness. So the possibilities is there, and it's already planned out. Like, it's already, I don't want to say it's already written, but it made her bands make sense in this timeline.
it makes sense in this timeline. And if you know Kamala Khan, she does have those bands in the comics. She gets in like her like second like season run, but they're not like special. Like they were literally just like a family trinket that Bruno just like glued together to make her feel more connected to her family. But it's interesting for me when we talk about like where we are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and what we're talking about and what we're dealing with. For me, it's interesting just because I have Marcus. Did you read all of Miss Marvel's comics? I don't think you did, right?
So I read up until I want to say when she was leading the champions. I haven't read her most recent ones. I actually just downloaded them today, the Beyond the Limit, but I haven't been keeping up with her as much.
So like I've kept up with her up until like Beyond the Limit. Like that snuck up on me. I'm still trying to get I'm still reading those, but if you read I think it was Marvelous Miss Marvel,
Yes.
they discuss like where her powers come from. And Bruno says like her powers come from her trading her cells across the multiverse.
Right.
That's how she grows and heals and all of that. And so it's interesting that right after we had Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse, all right, we're doing with the multiverse then we chill down with like Moon Knight or whatever, which Marcus, why did they even make Moon Knight now that I'm thinking about it? Like
We'll talk about that at a separate time.
I'm just wondering. And then you have Multiverse of Madness, America Chavez, and now we have Miss Marvel, someone whose powers ostensibly come from the multiverse, even she doesn't deal with it. And I'm wondering if they're like setting her up because we obviously see they're setting up the Young Avengers. Like they've already shown Wanda's two kids. We saw the new Captain America, whatever his name is, and now they're
Isaiah.
bringing and then now they have Kamala Khan.
They also have America Chavez as well, who was also part of the Young Avengers. So
Yeah,
I don't want to jump too far ahead, but it's very exciting to see like the seeds being sown for the Young Avengers and the future. And even with the Fantastic Four, we're seeing Franklin and his sister Valerie. So it's a very exciting time. But overall, so how did you what did you think of the trailer?
I thought the trailer was good. Loved the use of the weekend, by the way. Blinding Lights is like a perfect way to sort of describe how Kamala sort of lives her life. I remember when they were going into like her second one, Miss Marvel, after she's like been with the Avengers for so long, and she like walks into school one day and she's like, what's happened while I was gone? And she basically like blanked out for like a total of 6 months. And like now Bruno has a girlfriend and she's got to deal with that. And so I really think they're aiming and hitting at like what makes Kamala Khan such like a loving and interesting superhero. I'm interested how they are going to flesh out the like people around her because like the side characters of Miss Marvel, if you like Miss Marvel, are just as iconic as Kamala Khan. Like they spent like two runs where Kamala Khan was like not there. It was like two whole comic volumes where like Kamala Khan's not there and it's just her friends in Jersey City. And because those characters were so well built, they were able to do it. So that's what my risk level, like that's where I'm looking towards. And I think having a TV series will help with that too a little bit. Like they'll have more time to like meet with and get to know the new characters. I'm also really interested to know, like, without having Kamala have to like learn as much about her powers, what is going to be her connection with Bruno? Because the off and on relationship between the two of them in the comics is like a core part of her comic, like tenpole, and also he's her guy in the chair, and so I'm wondering how they're going to like connect that together.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's interesting because we talked about how She-Hulk is going to be 9 issues. However, Miss Marvel is only going to be the standard 6. And it will be interesting to see how Disney plays with it. If there's one thing I'm really excited for this is probably the first time we'll ever be on like the ground street level. We'll be back at the street level again, but like we were in the street level in the Netflix series, but however, it was dark and gritty, and that's what you love about that series. But now we're going to see the balance between being a teenager and trying to be grounded while trying to save the day. We got that literally a little bit in Spider-Man, but however, it's Spider-Man. Like he's the biggest superhero alive. So like you gotta have them in the forefront. But with Ms.Marvel, I think there's truly an opportunity for the MCU to really lay out like, hey, this is what's happening on the ground. Here's what's happening on the street level. Because in the comics and just throughout her history, Ms. Marvel has always been dedicated to her community. Even in Secret Wars, when the Ultimate Universe and 616 collided, she chose to defend her neighborhood over going and trying to stop everything because she said, hey, I'm a neighborhood person. And even in Civil War, the one she was in, it was, hey, my community comes first. And that's when her and her mentor, Carol Danvers, when they were arguing, because it's like, hey, you're a big time hero. You guys are focusing on these big issues. However, we still have to protect the little man, and that's my calling, and that's my opportunity, and that is my job as a hero. So I'm very excited. I hope they truly deep dive into Ms. Marvel and just her character as it pertains to the street.
You know what? Do you remember a few years ago when they were making a sitcom in the DCE universe, and it was supposed to be based on like an insurance form in like the DC universe? It wasn't like a good show. It was like Power or something like that. Anyway, like that's sort of what like Marvel should like. I would really want Marvel to think about like making a show where like the heroes aren't there, because we're constantly asking the question of like, how does everybody else feel? Like when in Moon Knight, when they're changing like the night sky, and you're like, does this feel normal for people in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Like, oh, sky's moving. I mean, I was dusted last week. So like, honestly, I think Kamala's really chance to get close to that, but like, I would be interested to see like, what is the normal life of somebody in the Marvel universe? What are you trying to do? Like, is insurance just impossible to get now? Like,
right. So overall, so you just want, I know in your rant you said you're going to love it. Regardless, who do you want her to face, just as villains? Or
I thought about this a lot, and I was looking at her rogues gallery. I think for me, realistically, they'll probably use her very first villain, which is he's kind of lame. He's like inventor.
The inventor, yeah.
Yeah. He's kind of lame, but he's sort of like Kamala's only one. The one villain I think would be an interesting villain for them to have a conversation on if the show gets like a second season or rerun would be Document X, or I think it's like Doc X. It's sort of like a supervillain that was like created by the internet, by all the toxicity in the internet, and he like tries to ruin everybody's life. Right. I think that if they were to adapt that story, they would really be able to like, again, when we go back to like talking about addressing the Star Wars fan, that could be a way for them to address, because MCU doesn't have as much of a problem, but there still is a problem of like both racism and toxicity and online. And I think that would be a time for them to have a conversation about what is our community like and what are the toxic elements about it.
No, for sure. If there's one thing I really want them to lean into Kamala's nerdiness. Like, she was on online forums. She writes fan fiction. She loves comic books. She loves video games. Like, really tap into her being a nerd, and her like loving pop culture, and her being a fan of the Avengers and being a fan of Ms. Marvel. Like, there's truly an opportunity here to like portray a high school girl who isn't the popular girl, who isn't Mary Jane Watson, who isn't like the A girl. Like, treat her like the loser and nerd that she is, and we can see the come up from like her trying to be her being a loser and her being a superhero, and it's like, oh, they counteract, or they're not even equally meshed. So hopefully we're going to see something of that nature. Like, if anything, so do you remember? Well, you probably don't remember. In Moon Knight, there was like hidden QR codes, and you would scan the QR code, and it would say, "Hey, read more about this here," or "Hey, read more about Moon Knight here." I hope in like this is just like a wow, this probably won't even happen, but like if Marvel put QR codes throughout Ms. Marvel, and instead of linking to her comics, it would be like a fanfic that she wrote.
One of the
fanfic, or even just like a fake message board she was on.
One of if we're putting feats out for Ms. Marvel, she's one of the few characters that has been able to correct Agent Coulson on superhero knowledge. So, if you don't know how smart Ms. Marvel is, she's checking Agent Coulson on superheroes.
Right. No, for sure. Do you have anything else to add?
No, just read Ms. Marvel, and I'm so excited for it.
Okay, great. Once again, that was myself and Metro Meta. We kind of have a busy week today. We are going to be back very soon reviewing the trailer for the upcoming Pokemon Violet and
Scarlet
and Violet. So stay tuned for that. We dropped a She-Hulk reaction trailer just like this a few weeks ago. Make sure you're following us on all social media platforms. Follow Meta at MetroMeta26. Follow me at Flow My Hero. Follow the brand at 26 and Glencoe Media Network. And until next time, peace.
See ya.
All right, everybody. Y'all know who it is, Metro Meta and
at One Marcus Flowers.
And we'd like to thank you for watching and listening to our content. We'd like to thank you even more if you leave a like, a comment,
subscribe. Definitely subscribe. We need that. Subscribe, subscription.
Hey, don't forget to share with all your friends and tell us how you feel.
And tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend that you got it from 26 and Glencoe Media Network.
Keep it real.